Well, hey there, listeners. Welcome to the Brand Marketing Show. I'm your host, Kath Langman. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, again, which is creating storytelling content that builds unforgettable brands. And of course, if you are building a brand, then you certainly do want to be unforgettable and not the opposite. And I actually want to start today by telling you a really interesting story myself. And it's about an airline safety video that has, in a very short space of a few weeks, gotten over 6 million views on YouTube. Might be even more by now. It's not a crash investigation video. There's no scandal in this video. It's not some, influencer with millions of followers filming themselves getting bumped to first class. It's a safety video, the bit that plays before takeoff that virtually everyone usually ignores whilst they're scrolling their phones. You may know the one that I'm talking about. It's Philippine Airlines who released what they call their safety novella only on December the 31st, 2025, and it has gone absolutely viral. It is essentially a 6-minute telenovela, a Filipino soap opera, and it's complete with a love triangle, a runaway bride, wealthy, disapproving parents, and a number of dramatic plot twists. Of course, the safety instructions are also woven into the story, and at one point, the jilted groom is standing at the altar when the protagonist bursts in to stop the wedding, and that's when the oxygen masks drop from overhead. The congregation gasps, and it's genuinely dramatic. And of course, it's had, 6 million plus views, and the comments are incredible. One person wrote, I have never actually paid attention to an in-flight safety demo video from start to end. Despite the emotional pull, every instruction came through clearly and it stayed with me. And if you think about that comment for a second, I mean, this is mandated content. Airlines are legally required to show safety demonstrations, and research shows that only about 30 to 40% of passengers actually watch them. Most people just tune out because they've seen it 100 times and it's really boring. Now, Philippines Airlines asked a different question. Instead of how do we just tick this compliance box, they actually asked, what if people actually wanted to watch this? And so their VP of marketing has been quoted as saying, this project challenged us to rethink safety communication from the ground up. Filipino audiences connect through story, emotion, and shared cultural language. So we embraced that truth. And their creative director added something that I think is genuinely profound. Every scene had to be emotionally expressive, but functionally instructional. Emotionally expressive, but functionally instructional. So they didn't remove the safety information. Obviously, they couldn't. They didn't make it optional. They delivered every single piece of mandatory content, but they wrapped it in something that people actually wanted to watch and experience. And so when I went and watched this, it got me to thinking about why most brand content is just so forgettable. Because it's not that brands don't try, they're producing more content than ever these days. From social posts, emails, product descriptions, blog articles, ads, the list goes on, and the volume is enormous. I sometimes joke it's like the cookie monster on Sesame Street that's always hungry. But most of it just lands with a thud. There's no engagement, there's no emotional response. If you actually read it and you understand it, then you forget it pretty much immediately, which is a problem if you are trying to grow a brand. So today on the show, I'm going to dig into why this happens. Why is so much brand content so boring? And more importantly, how do you create content that actually makes people feel something? Because here's what I believe. Every brand has interesting stories to tell. Every product exists because someone cared enough to make it, whether it was, to meet a particular desire or gap in the market or fulfill certain needs, whatever, was the reason behind creating in the first place. And every customer has a real life that your product fits into somehow. The problem isn't that you have nothing interesting to say. The problem is that you haven't been taught how to say it in a way that lands. So that's what we're going to get into on this episode. But before we talk about solutions, let's just be a little honest about the problem. We are drowning in content. Every brand, every business, every person with a phone or a computer is creating and publishing constantly. Your customers' news feeds and like your own are overflowing. Their inboxes are groaning. Their attention is being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. And most of what they see is forgettable. Generic product descriptions that could be for any brand in the category, social posts that feel like they were written by a committee trying not to offend anyone, emails that are technically correct but emotionally flat. Welcome sequences, if you're doing the automated email marketing that welcome you in the same way that every single other brand welcomes you. I mean, it all blurs together in one beige mass of content. And here's the thing that most brands don't realize. Boring content doesn't just underperform, it can actually damage your brand as well. Every touch point is an impression. Every email, every Instagram caption, every product page, it's all forming an impression of who you are. And if that first impression, if noticed, is meh, you're training people to just ignore you. You're becoming part of the noise that they've learned to tune out. So boring can be pretty expensive. It costs you attention, it costs you engagement, and eventually it costs you sales. Have a think about your own behavior. How many emails did you delete this week without reading? How many Instagram posts did you just scroll past without pausing? How many product pages did you leave after 2 seconds because they told you nothing interesting? Your customers are doing exactly the same thing with your content. And if it doesn't grab them, if it doesn't make them feel something, it's getting skipped. So why is so much content so boring? It's not laziness. Most brand owners I know work incredibly hard. It's usually not budget either. I mean, Philippine Airlines video certainly wasn't cheap, but plenty of great content costs nothing but thought and, your own time and effort to create it. So I think it comes down to three things. And once you see them, hopefully you can start to fix them. And the first reason is simply that I think most brand owners aren't trained storytellers. And why would they be? I mean, you started your brand because you're passionate about your product or your niche. You understand your craft, maybe your manufacturing, your supply chain. You've learned customer service, logistics, probably financial management. You've figured out Shopify, maybe Klaviyo, maybe Meta ads, all of this stuff, right? But the narrative structure, the emotional hooks, the tension and release in storytelling, I mean, that wasn't part of the business plan. It wasn't in the startup checklist, and nobody sat you down and taught you how stories actually work. I mean, maybe since school days, right? So when it's time to write a product description or an email or a social caption or shoot a real video or, create some content for socials, you do what feels natural. You describe the thing, you list what it does and how it works, and you state the facts. And, it might be, and look, I'm going to be slightly exaggerating here to make a point, but it might be as bland as 100% organic cotton, available in 5 colors, machine washable. That's information. It's useful. Of course, it's necessary, but it's not a story. It doesn't make anyone feel anything. And it's pretty forgettable. Facts are boring. Of course, I don't mean that facts aren't important. Of course they are. But facts alone don't make people feel anything. And if people don't feel anything, they're not going to remember it. And if they don't remember it, they're probably not going to act. They're just going to keep scrolling by. Now, when I say storytelling, I don't mean that you need to be writing fairy tales. And I certainly don't mean that you need to aim to become a Pulitzer Prize winning author. I just mean understanding how humans process and remember information. And we remember emotions, not facts. We remember characters, not features. We remember journeys, not destinations. And if you think about Philippine Airlines again, and certainly go and search it up on Google, they could, not Google, on YouTube, they could have delivered the same information by saying, in an emergency, oxygen masks will drop from overhead compartments. Place the mask over your nose and mouth and breathe normally. That's what every other airline does. It's factual, it's correct, and most of us ignore it. Instead, oxygen masks drop as the hero bursts into a church to stop a wedding. The congregation gasps, and we care because we care about the characters. We're watching because we want to know what happens next. And in the process, the safety information lands into our memory. The creative director said something that I will mention again, and it's that every scene had to be emotionally expressive but functionally instructional, and that's the balance, that's the goal. Most brand content, I think, just achieves the second part, the functionally instructional, but completely misses the first. It tells you about the product and it gives you the information. It keeps your Instagram profile looking current if anyone goes to specifically check it out, but it doesn't really make you feel anything much. And there are a few specific story elements that a lot of brands' content completely lacks. And the first would be tension. Stories do need a little bit of conflict, some problems, or some stakes. Something needs to be at risk or unresolved or desired. But most brand content is, of course, all resolution with no tension. Our product is great, buy it. I mean, where's the drama in that? Where's the reason to care? The second element is character. Who is this about? Who do we care about? A features list has no protagonist, but customer stories, founder journeys, a glimpse into someone's real life, those have characters, and we instinctively we pay attention to characters because that's how our brains are wired. We recognize it. And the third element is transformation. Stories are about change. There's always a before and an after. What was this like? What was life like before this product existed? What's it like now? Most product descriptions describe a static thing, whereas great ones describe a transformation. It could be from frustration to relief, or from problem to solution, from before to after. So when your content has tension, it has character, and it has transformation, it stops being content and starts being a story, and stories get remembered. Now, I'm going to try and make this really concrete with an example that probably most of the world knows. Think about Star Wars, the original one that came out, the original movie that came out in 1977. Luke Skywalker is a farm kid on a desert planet. He's bored, he wants adventure, he dreams of something more than what he's living in his life at that moment. That's character. We know who he is and what he wants. And then his aunt and uncle are killed. The droids show up with a secret message. The Empire is hunting him. There's tension, there's a problem, there are stakes, something needs to be resolved. And by the end, this farm kid who's never left his planet has destroyed the Death Star and become a hero. That's transformation, before and after, a journey from ordinary to extraordinary. Now, imagine if George Lucas had just listed Luke's features instead. Luke Skywalker, male, early 20s, moisture farmer, good pilot, force sensitive, available in beige. That's what most product descriptions sound like. I mean, they're technically accurate, but completely forgettable. Nobody would have watched that movie. Nobody would have cared about that character because facts don't create feeling and stories do. So your product isn't just a thing with features, it's a solution to someone's problem. It's the transformation from frustrated to relieved, or from struggling to sorted, from this isn't working to finally. So that's your story. You just need to be able to tell it. Now, a second reason why I think that so much content is boring right now, and I say this as someone who does use AI tools every day, is the way brands are using AI to create their content. And the temptation is so obvious. AI can generate content in seconds, things like product descriptions, social media captions, email copy, blog posts. I mean, you can produce a week's worth of content before your morning coffee even gets cold. It's efficient, it's cheap, and it's incredibly easy. And it's making everything sound the same. Here's the thing about AI. It's trained on averages. It produces the most statistically likely next word, which means it produces the most generic, middle of the road, top of the bell curve, won't offend anyone content possible. AI is brilliant at sounding like everyone. Left to its own devices, it is terrible at sounding like you. AI generated content almost always plays it safe. It won't say something surprising or provocative or polarizing. It won't make a joke that might not land. It won't take a stance that might alienate someone. If you can hear a dog barking in the background, that's Lenny, and I've shut him out of my office. Playing, but back to this AI generated content, playing it safe is just, again, the fastest route to being ignored because your brand voice is what makes you recognizable. It's the quirks, the opinions, the specific way you phrase things, the in-jokes, the little moments that make your customers think, yeah, they get me. AI kind of smooths all of that out into more of a corporate beige. It sounds professional, it sounds competent, it sounds accurate, but it doesn't sound like anyone in particular. If your content could have been written by any brand in your category, what's the point of your brand? I think AI also lacks what I call the human moments. Those observations that make us laugh or wince or nod in recognition, the little details that feel like real life, kind of because they are, the when type moments that make someone feel seen. AI doesn't observe, it predicts, and there's a world of difference between those two things. And AI can tell you that the parents want their kids to be safe, but only a human can describe the specific moment of anxiety that they were experiencing, like maybe when your toddler climbs something that they shouldn't while you're 3 steps too far away. And so what I think is really going wrong though is the problem isn't AI. I mean, I think most people in business these days are probably using it. I use AI. I think most smart marketers use AI. It's a tool. So I don't think the problem is using AI, but what the problem is reviewing, it's using AI without reviewing what it produces. It's that kind of copy, paste, schedule, move on to the next task. And a lot of, a lot of tools that we're all using now make it so easy to do. Klaviyo integrates with Canva and, ChatGPT is integrated into so many tools. And so it just makes it so easy to just, press the button, copy paste, schedule, move on to the next task. And so a lot of people, particularly when you are, you know, running, as Aussies say, running your business on the smell of an oily rag, like you're doing all the things, wearing all the hats, and you have no, not a lot of time to do it all in. So people just don't, they're not stopping to read it properly. Nobody's kind of asking, does this actually make me feel something? Would I want to read this if I was a customer? Does this sound like us? If you don't have an emotional response to your own content, why would anyone else? I think AI needs to be your starting point, but not your end point. Use it for your first drafts or your brainstorming. You can use it to generate options that you might want to choose from and refine. You use it to get past the blank page, but then you need to add your own voice, add your own personal stories, own observations, opinions, add your specificity, add the observations that only someone in your world would make. And ask yourself, what would I never say? If the AI is saying it, that is your cue to change it. What's a detail only I would know? And that, what's my actual opinion on this? Put that in. And the moment you hit publish without adding something distinctly human, then you will have fallen into the trap. It is a little bit like the canary in the coal mine, where it just, it's so easy and enticing to start. And then before you know it, you've kind of so far down that it's very, before, you don't realize that this is where things have become, the situation that has ended up in. But there's a third reason that content becomes so boring, and that is what I call copycat syndrome. And I also get why this happens. When you don't know what to say in your EDMs, on your social posts, or whatever, you look at what others are saying. You do competitor research. You check what successful brands in your space are doing. And before you know it, you're not researching anymore. You are copying or closely emulating. If it works for them, it'll work for me, is the easy thought. But the problem is, by the time you've copied something, so has everyone else. The thing that made it work in the first place was what made it fresh. It was different, it stood out. But then after too many people are doing the same thing, it becomes wallpaper. And it's that whole scenario. The first brand to do something interesting gets attention. The 10th brand to copy it gets ignored. Every direct to consumer brand in existence claims to be, and I'm exaggerating here, but claims to be disrupting something. We're not like those other XYZ brands. We're not like traditional mattress companies. I mean, if everyone's saying it though, it doesn't mean anything. If everyone's saying their products are timeless, effortless, elevated, curated, elevated is a word that I see a lot produced by ChatGPT. These words have become so overused, they've been drained of all impact and meaning. They're just filler words, placeholder text that never, got replaced with something a bit more real or unique or individual. Scroll through Instagram in almost any product category, and every brand just ends up looking identical. In some categories, it's the neutral tones, the sans serif fonts, the flat lay photography, and the minimalist kind of aesthetic for everything. And when everyone looks the same, price becomes the only differentiator, and that then becomes a race to the bottom that no one wins. Copying can feel like it's reducing risk, which is, I think a lie that we tell ourselves. This worked for them, so it's probably a safe bet for me. But in my opinion, it's actually increasing risk because you're competing on sameness. You're giving customers absolutely no reason to choose you over the next cheaper option that looks and sounds exactly the same. Here's an example of copycat syndrome in action. Back in 2011, a book called, and you might want to block your ears if you're offended by swear words, a book called Go the Fuck to Sleep came out. And at that time, I had a baby that did not sleep because she had severe reflux. So I will never forget that book. It was a parody children's book, and Samuel L. Jackson read the audiobook, and it was everywhere. And, at the time, the title was shocking. It got news coverage before it even hit the stores, and everyone was talking about it. Then in 2013, Jen Sincero published You Are a Badass and hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. And then the floodgates opened. Suddenly, everywhere you would see books that had swear words in the title. The subtle art of not giving a fuck. Unfuck yourself. Get your shit together. Colouring books, journals, cookbooks, you name it. That's the end of my swearing for this episode. A 2017 study found that swearing in books had risen 28 times since the 1950s, and there are now over 50,000 results for the F word on Amazon. Marketing author Ben Gutman put it perfectly when he said, this strategy works great when the cursing is not novel and unique, but the magic wears off when hundreds of imitators come pouring into the marketplace. The first book with a swear word in the title was really shocking and fresh. The 500th one is just another book with a swear word in the title. It's not edgy anymore. It's not different. It's the new normal. And it stops giving the book or the brand that edge, that competitive edge. So it doesn't actually produce the kind of result that they're wanting. And worst of all, you're not seen as bold or authentic anymore. You're seen as jumping on a bandwagon. And when that happens with every copycat trend, the thing that worked because it was different stops working when everyone does it because the differentiation disappears. The reality is the only sustainable differentiation is being more yourself, not more like them. So instead of asking, what are others doing? Ask, what's true about us? Maybe your origin story, your beliefs, your customer stories, your observations about the world, the opinions that you actually hold. These are things that competitors can't copy because they're not theirs. The most defensible competitive advantage is being impossible to imitate. And the only way to be impossible to imitate is to be genuinely and specifically yourself. So those are the 3 traps: not knowing how to tell stories, letting AI write without human oversight, and copying everyone else because you don't know what else to do. Let's talk about how to actually fix it. I always love to do, a bit of step-by-step and offering some solutions and ideas. So, how do you actually create content that makes people feel something? Content that gets noticed, content that stops the scroll, remembered, acted on. As a side note, the most recent Meta algorithm update actually looks very specifically at the stop scroll rate and the initial engagement rate, and it will adjust how it is, feeding out your ad content and your organic content based on those things. So if you've got boring content, you have lost the Meta's algorithm game immediately. Anyway, I want to give you 5 practical techniques. These aren't abstract concepts. They're things that you can apply to whatever you're working on right now. And they work whether you're writing a product description, an email, a social media caption, or a landing page, or any other bit of marketing content about your brand. Remember that Philippines Airlines quote, emotionally expressive, but functionally instructional, and that's the goal. So you still need to deliver the information, the features and benefits and the details, but if you wrap it up in something that makes people care, then you're winning. So the first technique is to find the human. Every product has a human story either behind it or in front of it. Who made it? Who uses it? What moment in someone's life does it live in? Philippine Airlines found human drama in seatbelt instructions, a love triangle, a jilted groom, parents who disapprove. That's the human story wrapped around functional information. For your brand, the human might be the maker, the person who spent 3 years developing the formula, the family that's been producing these for generations, the founder who couldn't find what they wanted, so they made it themselves. Or the human might be the customer, the parent dealing with a specific frustration, the person at a particular moment in their life, someone trying to solve a problem that has emotional weight. Let me show you what this looks like. Take children's sunglasses, like one of the brands that we work with. Features only version, our sunglasses provide UV 400 protection. Human version, 80% of lifetime UV damage happens before the age of 18. These sunglasses protect kids during the years it matters most when they're building sandcastles, splashing in pools, and refusing to wear hats. So the same core information, but now there's a child, there's a timeline, there's a parent who just learned something they didn't know, there's a scene, sandcastles, pools, the hat negotiation every parent knows. Here's another example. Let's say you sell meal kits, features only version, fresh ingredients delivered weekly, easy 30-minute recipes. Human version, or the 5 p.m. panic when 3 people are asking what's for dinner and you're staring into a fridge full of the ingredients that don't go together. Everything you need, already planned, already measured, already figured out. The second version puts you in a moment. You can feel the 5 p.m. panic. You recognize the fridge stare. There's a person there, tired, under pressure, needing a solution, and the product becomes the relief. Technique 2 is to get ruthlessly specific. Generic adjectives are the enemy. Things like high quality, premium, luxurious. They might be true, but they're meaningless because everyone uses them. Your brain skips right over them. Specific details are going to stick better. They create pictures and they trigger recognition. So instead of high quality skincare, try we test every batch on our own faces before it leaves the lab. Or instead of sustainable packaging, try we buy back your empty bottles and refill them. Last year, we kept 47,000 containers out of landfill. Or instead of fast shipping, try for when you've promised it'll be there by Saturday and it's already Thursday. See the specific versions create a scene. You can picture it. You might even recognize yourself in it. And that's the power of specificity. Specificity also proves credibility. Anyone can claim high quality. Only someone who actually does the work can tell you they test every batch on their own faces. Look at your content and count the generic adjectives: quality, premium, innovative, sustainable. Every time you find one, challenge yourself to replace it with proof, or at least to qualify it. What's the specific thing that makes it quality? What's the actual number behind that sustainability claim? This is harder than using generic adjectives, I will grant you. It requires you to know your business, your products, your processes really deeply, but that's exactly why it works. It shows you actually know what you are talking about. Technique 3 is to tap into shared experiences. I think some of the most powerful words in marketing might be, when When you tap into an experience your customer has had, a frustration, a wish, a little victory, they feel really seen. They feel like you understand their world. Philippine Airlines understood that Filipinos love their telenovelas. That was the shared cultural experience that they tapped into. It wasn't random creativity, it was specifically relevant to their audience. So, what are the shared experiences of your customers? If you sell kids' shoes, the shared experience might be wrestling a screaming toddler into stiff shoes at 8 a.m. when you're already running late. If you sell meal kits, the shared experience might be standing in front of the fridge at 5 p.m. with no idea what to cook and three people screaming at you. Hey. If you sell skincare for new mums, the shared experience might be catching a glimpse of yourself in the bathroom mirror and thinking, who is that tired person? When you reference these moments, you are not just selling a product, you are saying, I get it. I know what you're dealing with. I made this for that exact thing. And that connection, that feeling of being understood is worth so much more than just a list of features. How do you find these shared experience? Well, you've got to listen to your customers. You got to read the reviews, not just the star ratings, but the actual words people use. Look at what questions come up again and again and pay attention, if you can, to what your best customers tell you about their lives, their frustrations and their wins, and talk to them. The gold is in these conversations, the specific language people use, the problems they describe, the moments they reference. That's your material. Technique 4 is use your actual voice. So here's a test. Read your last few pieces of content out loud. Do they sound like you, like a human, or do they sound like they were written by a corporate communications department? If you would never say something, leverage synergies, for example, in a real conversation, don't write it. If you'd never say curated selection of elevated essentials, don't write it. Write how you actually talk and then edit for clarity and flow, but keep the humanity. Think about how you would explain your product to a friend over coffee. That's your voice, and that's how your content should sound. This doesn't mean being unprofessional or sloppy at all. It just means being human. There's a version of professional that's warm and real, and there's a version of that is also stiff and corporate, and you want to aim for the first one. Your voice is your personality on the page. Are you warm, funny, straight talking, nurturing? Whatever it is, you want to let that come through. Don't sand off your edges to sound like everyone else. The brands people connect with feel like real people, not like press releases. And then technique 5 is to take a position. This is where I think a lot of brands do get nervous. Taking a position means that some people might not agree with you. Some people might not like you. And that's good though. Brands who try to appeal to everyone appeal to no one. They are forgettable because they don't stand for anything. You want to have an opinion, believe in something. Be willing to say, this is what we think, even if you know not everyone will agree. It doesn't have to be controversial. It can be as simple as, we believe kids' sunglasses should be functional first and cute second. Or, we think the skincare industry overcomplicates everything. Or, we're tired of baby products that look like they belong in a hospital. Whatever it is that's true, right? A point for you. A point of view gives people something to agree with, and agreement creates affinity. It makes someone think, these are my people. And some people won't like you, but that's the point. The people who don't resonate with your position weren't your customers anyway, and the people who do will become your advocates. The alternative, of course, is being so neutral, so inoffensive, so middle of the road that nobody feels strongly about you either way. And that's the worst possible outcome, because at least if someone disagrees with you, they remember you exist. If they don't even notice, they don't feel strongly about you one way or the other, where's the motivation to take action and buy? Now, where do we start with all of this? I don't want to overwhelm you with, like a complete content overhaul. It's probably not realistic or necessary. But instead, maybe just pick one piece of content this week. Maybe it's a product description that's never really converted well, or maybe it's a welcome email that gets opened but doesn't engage and has a really low click-through rate. Maybe it's your about page that you wrote 3 years ago and haven't looked at since. Here's where I would focus first if you are not sure. Your hero product description. This is probably your most viewed page, particularly if you're sending, paid traffic to it. If it's boring, you are leaving money on the table every day. Your welcome email, second. So this is often the first direct communication a new subscriber or a potential customer receives from you, and it's going to set the tone for the entire relationship. Your about page is a page that most people visit when they are trying to decide whether to trust you. It should be more than a timeline of when you started, and it should definitely be personable as well, but not anonymous. So pick one piece or maybe pick all three, but just do it one at a time, week on by week, and run it through 3 questions. Does this make me feel something? If you read it and you feel nothing, no interest, no recognition, no amusement, nothing, it's not going to make your customers feel anything either. Could any brand have written this? If you swapped out your brand name for a competitor's and it would still make sense, it's too generic. Your voice is not coming through. And then thirdly, would I share this with my friend? Not look at my marketing, but genuinely, this is interesting or funny or useful. If you wouldn't forward it, it's probably not good enough yet. So then rewrite it, find the human, get really specific, tap a shared experience, use your real voice and take a position. You don't have to apply all 5 techniques to everything, of course. Sometimes one is enough. Sometimes you find the perfect specific detail, and that is what transforms a whole piece. Sometimes you add your real voice and suddenly it sounds like an actual brand instead of just a template. So start with one piece, make it better, notice what worked, and then do another. One piece of interesting content, of course, is not going to change everything, but the compound effect of small improvements across all of your content is enormous. Every piece that actually lands helps to build a brand affinity with your audience, and every piece that falls flat chips away at it. You're either going to be building connection or eroding it. There really isn't a neutral position here. Now, getting this right for your brand, I mean, this is one of the skills that we do work on with every brand that we partner with, finding the stories, the customer moments, developing the voice, identifying the emotional hooks that make people actually care. It's not about being a good writer in some abstract sense. It's about understanding what makes your brand interesting and getting that across in everything that you create. If your content feels flat and you are not sure how to fix it, or if you've been relying on AI or copying competitors because you don't know what else to do, or if you know your brand has a story but you can't seem to tell it in a way that resonates, I want to invite you to book a brand growth strategy session with me. We will look at your current content through fresh eyes. We will identify the stories that you're not telling, the ones that are sitting there, right there, waiting to be found. And we'll help you work on finding the voice that's uniquely yours. And then, of course, we'll help you to look at the bigger picture, your positioning, your customer journey, and how all the pieces fit together. Because great content doesn't exist in isolation. It is part of a whole ecosystem of how your brand shows up and how you are using that great content to help you grow and achieve your goals and your vision. And then we help you map out how to make your content actually connect with the right people that you are trying to reach, not in some generic best practices way, but in a way that is true to who you are and what your customers actually care about. So if you'd like to book one of these sessions in with us, just head to our website, productpreneurmarketing.com, and you'll find the Let's Chat, Let's Talk link in the top menu, or just head to the podcast show notes for this episode. But to round us out today, let me just leave you with this, because we have covered a lot: the 3 traps, not knowing how to tell stories, letting AI write without human oversight, and copying everyone else, and the 5 techniques to fix it: finding the human, getting ruthlessly specific, tapping your shared experiences and using your actual voice, and lastly, taking a position. But if there is one thing that I really want you to remember, it's this: an airline made millions of people watch a safety video by choice and for entertainment, and they did it by refusing to accept that mandatory content had to be boring. They asked, what if people actually wanted to watch this? And then they made something worthy of that standard. If Philippine Airlines can make oxygen masks and emergency exits entertaining. I reckon you can make your product descriptions worth reading. You can make your emails worth opening. You can make your brand worth paying attention to. The problem isn't that brands don't create content, it's that they create content without asking whether anyone would actually want to consume it. The question isn't, what do I need to say? It's what would make someone care? Your customers, you've got to remember this, your customers, like you, are bombarded with content every day. Most of it washes over them without leaving a trace. But the brands that win are the ones that make people stop, feel something, and remember. In a world of infinite content, the scarcest resource is genuine human connection, and that's what storytelling creates. So, my challenge for you this week is to take one piece of your content, just one, and make it better. Find the human in it, get specific, tap a shared experience, use your real voice and take position. So just starting small could be your product description, one email, one social media caption. Try and notice the difference. Maybe notice how much harder it is to write content with genuine feeling than content that's just technically correct. That difficulty is the work, and that's where the value is created. Now, if this episode was useful to you, I would be so grateful if you share it with another brand owner whose content could use a little bit of a makeover or who you know is struggling in this area. We all know someone who's stuck in the AI generated copycat features list rut, and maybe this is just what they need to hear. Until next time, though, I'm Kath Langman, reminding you that boring is a choice. Your customers deserve better than generic content. Your brand deserves better than sounding like everyone else. And you're capable of more than just a features list and forgettable copy. And there's always a more interesting choice available. Bye for now.